right. So you have Michelle Castle with Guild Mortgage, Brandy Squires with Guild Mortgage, and Michael Stockton with Ace Credit. Coming to you today to answer some commonly asked questions in regards to credit and financing, and really how the credit works with financing, because everybody should be paying attention to their credit score, what's reported on the credit report. You should always be watching, because your credit is so important in all aspects of your life. So if you're not on a credit monitoring service, you need to be on one so you can see if there's anything that pops up that you weren't expecting, isn't supposed to be there. And the quicker you take action, the better. So Michael, if they're not monitoring their credit already with another service, what's the service you prefer or recommend?
There's two, actually. One is it's creditpartnersofamerica.com. And they're pretty good. It's more user friendly than some of the other companies out there. They give you all three credit bureaus, all three scores. And again, the scores are going to vary. It's not going to be the same as a mortgage company, but they should be fairly close. The other one would be Privacy Guard. Again, they give you all three bureaus. It's not as, it doesn't go back as far in regards to their history. In the key, it only goes back for 24 months, although it has the late payments. If there was a late payment from 5 years ago, the late payment still reports the late. However, you don't see it in the key. But if you had...
What was the name of the other one? I had the volume turned down, so I couldn't hear you.
Credit Partners of America.
Credit Partners of America. Okay.
Correct.
Now, do either one of those charge?
They do. Of course, anything that you get, they're going to charge unless it's Credit Karma, and everybody knows how good they are. But yeah, I think it's $24 or $29. I'm not sure exactly. I know I have the link that I can send and it's $24, but I think if you don't have the link, it's $29.
Okay.
And they give you a monitoring. They let you know exactly what's happening. If there's an inquiry, you get an alert. If there's a new account, there's an alert. If there's over the limit on your credit card, you get an alert. So they're very good about letting you know exactly what's going on if something were to pop up.
Awesome. And that's really the key, is to get on it. I know from personal experience, you go to a doctor's office and you update your address or remind them it's still the same. But then, you end up with a bill that finally gets to you after it went to the wrong address and it's been a while. And then all of a sudden, a doctor bill turns to a collection super fast in some cases. And I know in the past, I've picked up the phone and just made a phone call as soon as I recognized that it happened, was able to fix it. Ignoring it or not paying attention so you never notice it popped up on your credit report is not a good situation to be in.
Right. And I'm having to deal with that because I was in the hospital about 3 weeks ago. So I've been getting a few bills in the mail, and I know I'm going to be calling the hospital just to make sure, because I know I don't want anything slipping through the cracks, because I see that happening far too often. They were waiting for a bill, they never sent it out, or again, they may have sent it to the wrong place. So I always want to be a little proactive instead of reactive where that's concerned.
Such a key word, proactive instead of reactive. So if you've had a procedure done, you should be asking questions. Now, if it's an emergency procedure or you're not feeling well at the time, you may not be thinking real clearly, but calling afterwards and saying, who all should I expect to receive a bill from?
Correct.
Because, oh my gosh, you have your lab, you have radiology, you have the physician, you have the facility, and that's just scratching the surface.
Yeah. Anesthesiologist, and then you have the actual facility, and
yeah, you could end up with a bazillion bills and not know, and they all start looking familiar. Right. So all right, so what happens? Medical bill gets popped up, or Brandy, what are some scenarios that you see or hear?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just the myth of people just not thinking that collection bills matter on medical, and that not being so much the case. We can overlook medical collections in the mortgage world, but you're still going to get affected by your credit scores. So
Yeah, so what Brandy's talking about is like whenever we're figuring out what are your true liabilities, if you have some accounts that have gone into collections, whether you agree with them or not, it is considered a liability because you owe the money according to that creditor. Medical bills are a little bit different in how we calculate your liability. So you don't have a payment tied to collection accounts, but at some point in time, they're going to have to be dealt with, or they get charged off, which impacts your credit even further. So as a mortgage company, as a creditor, we do have to take into consideration all monies owed at any point in time, not always just that point in time that we're pulling the credit report. So medical bills, though, fortunately, we do not have to figure into your debt to income on those collections. However, Michael, if you're looking to get a medical bill, I mean, oftentimes the medical bills really aren't legitimate bills and they can be removed from the credit report. How often do you see medical bills removed?
Probably have those removed 70 or 80% of the time. What someone can do on a small medical bill, depending on the collection company, you could even do a pay for deletion possibly. Something to always ask and see if that's something they're willing to do. You always want to get that in writing, that if they say yes, you may call tomorrow and that person's no longer there after you paid it. So always get it in writing ahead of time that they're willing to remove it from all three bureaus. Now, it may take 30 days, it may take 45 to 60 days, and they'll have that in their paperwork as well, that they agree to remove it, but be aware it can take that long. So as long as you have that in writing, then you kind of can hold their feet to the fire and you can actually send that into the credit bureau. Now, there's some companies that do not do pay for deletions. And that's kind of where we can come in and use federal laws that are in place to protect the consumer and see what we can get off based on erroneous information or something that they just can't prove.
So whenever that happens, I mean, the point I want to make is so many times people decide to go look for a house. And right now you have to be ready to write a check, or you've got to have a strong, solid pre-approval letter if you don't have the means to write a check. Which is why Brandy and I always stress, if you're thinking about purchasing a home in the near future, now is the time for us to be looking at the full financial picture so we can help you make some smart financial decisions. And some of that is to allow you enough time to do what can be done, and contacting Michael and saying, hey, I need some help with these medical bills. I was sick. I was in the hospital a long time. I've got big bills. I don't know what to do to help. We need enough time to help you sort through all of that. And it's not just it doesn't happen in 24 hours.
Yeah, I tell people it didn't happen overnight and it won't get fixed that way, but we can at least start and see what we can do. And sometimes it may just be advice. It may just be, hey, you need to pay this credit card down. Don't open any new loans. Don't go buy furniture for a house you haven't bought yet. That's happened quite a few times, as crazy as it sounds. So yeah, you want to talk to somebody, whether it be me or Michelle or Brandy, and definitely kind of see what's the best step to take to be in a position where you can qualify down the road.
Brandy, I know you get this question asked all the time. What are rates looking like right now? Well, that is a subjective question because it's just not, we don't just pick a rate. We don't just pull a report and go, okay, the rate today is so many other factors. But you know what I remind people all the time? Your rate's what your credit score allows the rate to be, or your rate is what you're willing to pay for it as well. We hear that all the time. And I know, Michael, a lot of people call you because they're like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to buy a mortgage loan. Buy a house and need a loan. And I've got to get my scores up 60 points or whatever the case may be. Typically, if you're working with someone and y'all are going through a strategy to improve credit scores, because higher the scores, lower the rate, lower the scores, higher the rate. How long does it typically take, and why does it take that amount of time?
Federal law allows companies to respond in the credit bureaus a reasonable amount of time, and that's somewhere between 35 and 45 days. Our program is designed to take somewhere between 1 and 6 months because, again, companies, they really don't want to delete anything if they can get away with it. So it's kind of a back and forth sometimes, depending upon who it is and what it is, how old it is, and things like that. So, it's a little bit of a process, and we have a processing department that works with that to do the investigations. But you should know something within about 45 days from the credit bureaus. And that's, again, where monitoring would help, to where you'll get an alert that something's been deleted, your credit score's gone up, something of that nature. Because I do get people that they'll call me and they'll be like, hey, I need this, I need 60 points like you were mentioning, but I need it within 30 days. And that's normally not realistic.
Right. And ideally, for us, once you pull that credit report, you've got 90 days before we've got to pull another credit report to get it updated. But that doesn't mean that we can't pull it sooner. We could pull it in 45 days after you've done some work to get those scores up. Brandy, I don't remember for sure, but it seems like 760 is a top tier, right? For as far as interest rates are concerned.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's like A+ credit. Like that's the best of the best.
Yeah. So, really that 760 credit score. So if you're thinking about buying a house and you're hovering around 660, 680, and you're not going to buy anything till the first of the year, now is really the time for us to look at your credit, look at your full financial picture, and put a really good strategy together for you. Brandy and I are going to come on tomorrow and really start talking more finance strategies using the total cost analysis, so you can see what some of those strategies are that we put together. Because what's important to us is that you're not just looking at buying a house. We want you to really take this time to really focus on your credit and your finances while you are thinking along those lines. So it's a lot easier right now, whenever you do apply, to go ahead and look at the overall financial picture. Overall, as in, what are you doing for retirement? And what are you doing? Like, let's talk about it all while we're together talking about buying a house, because it all just works together. Or should.
And just to see the numbers, just to see what makes sense, just so you can see a total comparison of all of it put together, so you can see it all.
Yeah. We're not, we can be order takers, but we choose not to be order takers. We really want to explore with you. What's that, Michael?
I said, or if somebody's like, they can get qualified at a 680 and they're a certain rate, if I improve it to a 720 or a 760, what would be the difference? How much money can you save to see if it's worth waiting?
We can run those strategies. That's a great strategy. Our next phone call, Michael, that is perfect. We will look at, okay, if I was buying a house right now, my credit score 620, what does the rate look like? All right, what does it look like if we got it to 680? What does it look like if we got it to 760? So you can see the cost difference in purely interest paid over credit score.
Yeah, because sometimes I'll tell somebody it may save you a half a point or a quarter of a point, and they're like, "Oh, that's not very much money." And I'm like, "Well, 0.5% that can add up," and we'll kind of figure that up. And they're like, "Well, I didn't realize that." So
that is I'm so glad you said that. That's going to be a fun strategy for us to look at. If we can work that out, where you can see how much, not only is it monthly, but how does it change the equity built in your home and the amount of time it takes to build that equity just over interest rate based on credit scores. Love it. Right. That's going to be that'll be our next call. All right. So medical bills, you've got to leave at 5:15. It's after 5:15, Michael.
It's all right. It was just a follow-up call. So I texted them and told them I may be a little bit late.
Okay. All right. So I have another question then. So, okay. One thing that I have said, and I so hope I'm not wrong, but I've always told folks, whenever they have a medical bill, if it's a $20,000 medical bill and they can't write a check for $20,000 and insurance is done paying, God help you, that would be just an awful thought, but it happens, especially with hospitalizations that we are experiencing right now. So what if you can't afford that $20,000 bill, but you don't want it ruining your credit? What do you do?
Most of the time you can contact the hospital or the doctor's office or whoever it may be directly, and they'll work with you. If they set up a payment arrangement, be sure and try to get that in writing, because I have had people say, I'm paying $5 a month and they can't send me the collections, and they can. especially if you have a $20,000 bill and it's $5, they're never going to pay that off. So they may be willing to settle that without it going to a collection. And that's why I state contact the hospital directly, the doctor's office. And most of the time they'll be able to work with you as long as it's something within reason.
Okay. Do they typically put that in writing, or is it just a verbal agreement?
I would get it in writing.
What I thought.
Push and push until they put it in writing to do that.
Okay. All right. So does anybody else, there is some good feedback, but nobody has any questions in particular. All right. So anything else in regards to that? I know the other subject that we really want to talk about, and for sake of time, we'll just catch it on the next one, is student loans.
Right.
Because that's another one that's tricky, and there's a lot of misinformation in regards to student loans. So to sum it up for anybody that's joined our call, medical bills do affect your credit score. Absolutely, they do. It also affects your credit history. What it doesn't affect when you go to buy a house is your debt to income. It doesn't affect whether or not you qualify or don't qualify based on the dollar amounts of the collection. Other collections do affect an FHA loan, and the collection of your non-purchasing spouse. So if you're married, but you're not going to put your spouse on the loan due to credit, it could impact that, impact your loan as the spouse, even though your spouse with the lower scores isn't on the loan. So collections do matter. So if you get a bill, you can't pay it, you better call the creditor and have some good conversation, get it in writing, and come up with some kind of plan you can afford and that you do pay consistently. Does that summarize it all?
Correct. Yeah, that's what I would do. And normally they'll work with you if it's something that's thousands of dollars. They'll negotiate that down and then try to get that in writing to where they'll agree with that without it going to a collection.
All right. If there's other questions that you have, now's your chance to put them in the chat. And if nobody has questions, then I'll let you get back to making some phone calls. I've got to make a couple of phone calls, and then Brandy and I are meeting up in downtown Denison for a Pop a Cork event in just a little bit. Doesn't that sound fun?
It does. And I'll see y'all here in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Michael, we appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Great
Michael
job.
Stockton, Ace Credit. You can message him on Facebook for all of his contact information. We've worked with Michael for almost 10 years now. So I've always said I've had a hard time referring credit repair companies because I really need someone that works with clients the way we work with clients, which a lot of time ends up being some consultation services. We're not a fit for everybody, and that's okay. We'll still give out information and be a resource. So Michael believes the same. You just do the right things and right things happen. So, all right. Y'all have a good evening.
Right. Y'all too. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.